So, this escalated quickly.
Pokemon Ranger, I choose you!
What's up, my dear boys and girls, it's your Ranger Boy here, and welcome to another review of Pokemon Horizons. Sorry for the late review, but over the weekend we had Mother's Day, so yeah, sadly I didn't have any time this weekend. But hopefully you guys will still watch this video, because after watching episode 6 we have a lot, and I mean a lot, to talk about. So grab some popcorn, grab some cookies, and let's do this. After a short recap by Liko explaining the last major events of the previous episode, we dive right back where we left off, with Amifio about to dive straight into Liko. But luckily for her, the mysterious pendant around her neck once again protects her from any harm, while also probably protecting Amifio from any potential FBI intervention. At the same time, Roy's also very mysterious ancient Pokeball starts to glow as well. But what exactly is happening with that? We will talk about in just a few seconds. Before that, it seems like Amifio is done with all the children games, and with Reed now being separated from the kids, he calls out his ace, Cerulege, which, by the way, can we just call him by his Japanese name, please? I mean, Cerulege is a really cool name and all, but Soul Blaze! That right there sounds so much cooler. Anyway, as soon as Soul Blaze enters the battlefield, well, Liko's face tells it all. They are so fucked. I mean, of course you are. You are a newbie who just started their journey, and you are now facing up against an experienced trainer and their high-level Pokemon. How in the hell could you ever dream of defeating that opponent? It's just not feasible. It's not realistic. It just doesn't work that way. Do you hear me, Pokemon Journeys? It doesn't work that way! So in short, most of their attacks were useless, and even after a combo attack from both while activating their innate powers, Soul Blaze felt a little sting in his tummy and then quickly ends both Pokemon. Unfortunately, we now have to return to the ancient Pokeball once again, because before Amifio was able to deliver the finishing blow, both the pendant and the Pokeball are glowing again, the Pokeball starts to burst open, and conveniently a mother frickin' shiny Rayquaza popped out of it. What the fuck? It goes absolute bonkers rampage, unleashing its Draco Meteor upon the filthy humans, which left Amifio with no other choice but to retreat. Roy tries to control Rayquaza with his Pokeball, but why the hell should a legendary Pokemon bow to the will of a regular trainer, let alone a novice, and let that novice catch that legendary Pokemon so easily? Again, it just doesn't work that way, Journeys! So naturally, and also probably really insulted by Roy's attempt, it was about to blast the little boy, until Rayquaza took a short glance at Liko and probably thought to itself,
I'm scared of no human or Pokemon, but that little girl, she scares me.
And before Rayquaza was able to feel the wrath of Liko, it just disappears. To be honest, guys, after watching this scene, my very first thought was, what the fuck did I just watch? And that was probably the same thought that went through the heads of both Liko and Roy, with especially Roy looking like he was about to shit himself. But that feeling of confusion soon got replaced by the feeling of, admiration from both Liko and Roy after seeing a legendary Pokemon for the very first time. Roy's grandpa then conveniently tells them that the Black Rayquaza once obeyed the ancient adventurers from the old legends, aka the same people Roy aspires to be. Freed then asked a reasonable question of why such a strong Pokemon would be in Roy's Pokeball, and Roy's grandpa, with all the wisdom in his mind, he doesn't know anything about that at all. Furthermore, Liko comes to the conclusion that both her pendant and the Pokeball are somewhat connected to each other, and therefore also ask him for advice. And he still doesn't know anything at all. You are really a good for nothing guy, aren't you? But thank God we can leave the whole Rayquaza talk behind, and we actually arrive at, in my opinion, one of the best parts of the episode. Fuecoco really seems to miss Roy, until suddenly he receives a Pokeball from his idol Charizard. Meanwhile, we see Roy storming towards the ship, declaring his love and desire for Fuecoco and demanding an answer from his lover. And then we see both Paldean starters appear. Sprigatito runs into the arms of Liko, while Fuecoco at first seems to be a little bit sick, but then he spits out an empty Pokeball, therefore replying to Roy's desire with his own desire to also become Roy's Pokemon. He catches the Fire Croc, and Roy welcomes him with open arms, which seemingly warms up Liko's heart. Aw, how cute. If it wasn't for the whole singing thing that Liko still finds a little bit cringe. Then Freed for once actually acts like a Pokemon professor by stating his congratulations and how Fuecoco is now Roy's partner. But sadly, those celebrations only last shortly, because he then makes the announcement that Liko and the others will finally, thank God, finally leave the Kanto region and head towards the Palde region. You know, probably to finally receive the money from Liko mom. By the way, he should also probably ask for some more bonuses thanks to the whole Rayquaza incident. Anyway, hearing that his newly found friends are about to leave, Roy naturally gets really sad until Liko suggests to him to also go on an adventure. But Roy still hesitates because he doesn't know if his grandpa would ever let him. The grandpa then once again conveniently appears, so Roy expresses his desire to go on a journey while chasing after Black Rayquaza like the ancient adventurers did in the past, which seemingly displeased his grandpa at first. But then Roy also expresses his desire to fulfill Fuecoco's dream of becoming as strong as a Charizard. Yay! More Gen 1 pandering. And after hearing that Roy finally talks about someone else's dream for once, instead of only talking about his dream, he lets Roy set out to go on a journey. Roy joins Liko and the others, says goodbye to his grandpa with tears in his eyes, and after all that, he finally joins the rising Voltaiklers. And to be honest, I should be really happy for the guy, but when I saw how Ola tried to do the really uncool rising Voltaiklers handshake with Roy, and because Roy probably didn't want to be involved with that thing, we saw my girl and waifu Ola doing it all by herself. And seeing a person doing the handshake all by herself without any partner is probably the saddest thing I've ever seen. I mean, look at it, it's an atrocity! But anyway, Roy joins the gang and I'm happy for him. Meanwhile, we enter another great part of the episode. We switch to the villains with Amifio's master. Well, first of all, let's listen to his voice.
なぜ単独行動を続けた。アメジオは任務から外す。いつから一体いつから強化水月を使っていない。
I know his name is Master Gibeon, but we all know it's Aizen motherfrickin' Sosuke. He is planning everything in the background like he did in the good old Bleach days. So Master Gibeon Sosuke seems to be displeased with Amifio's decision to act on his own, and as a result of his actions, Amifio now has to not only abandon his mission and declare it as a failure, but also now another high-tier Explorers member called Spinel, who seemingly is also Amifio's rival, is taking over the mission. Insulted and humiliated by all this, Amifio basically just doesn't give a shit anymore and goes rogue against his master's wishes, and is chasing down Liko and Rayquaza all by himself. Goddamn! And that's the end of the episode, and without any more hesitation, let's have a long talk about everything good and not so good about this episode, and believe me, we had plenty of both. Like always, the good things first. One of the episode's main highlights definitely was the catching scene between Roy and Fuecoco, and it's basically like good old classic Pokemon. The trainer expressing his love and desire for the Pokemon to become his partner, and the Pokemon in question, in this case Fuecoco, answering back those feelings. Is it something we have seen before numerous times? Of course, because it's the classic Pokemon formula, but it still surprises me how after all these years of playing the games and watching the anime, a simple scene of a boy finally receiving his first Pokemon still gets me somewhat emotionally invested. It just proves to me that Pokemon as a franchise still has a special place in everyone's hearts, and being invested in such a simple scene just further cements my statement. I also like how Roy also has the subplot to fulfill Fuecoco's dream of becoming stronger, which will neatly tie in with the whole singing theme that both of them have. Is the singing concept as odd as Liko thinks it is? For sure, but hey, it's unique, and like I said numerous times before, both becoming stronger by singing is some great foreshadowing on Fuecoco's later evolution. The other scene I really want to talk about is all about Amifio, the Explorers as an organization, and the little character development that seems to start with the quote-unquote main villain. He now has been forced by his own master to abandon his mission and let his rival take over the project. Amifio himself dedicated so much efforts into. And the one thing I really did not see coming was Amifio basically going rogue now, disobeying his master's orders and now acting on his own will. I think the reason why this scene really shocks me so much is that it's such a stark contrast to Team Rocket, who are utmost loyal to Giovanni and would never even dream of going against the boss's order. I don't know if you guys know Avatar and the Last Airbender, but Amifio reminds me a little bit of Zuko from that show right now. In my opinion, Amifio going rogue really opens up many possibilities in terms of story. He can either chase down his targets to regain the respect of his master, or another option would be that Amifio, while chasing down both Liko and Roy, starts sympathizing with them, leading to a change of heart. There are also other options available, but I presented you with the things that came into my mind and the one which are most likely possible. But it still remains that this path for Amifio is a really fascinating one. and I honestly can't wait for more. Another thing that got revealed in this episode is that Amifio is by no means the only top tier trainer of the Explorers organization, but it seems like that there are 4 other members who I assume are on the same level of Amifio in terms of power, if not even greater, with one of them being Spinel. And it's kinda cool to see that our heroes have to potentially face several end boss types of characters along the way. And I think that's a really cool way to keep the Explorers both mysterious and exciting at the same time, instead of them fizzling out quickly like Team Rocket did in the past, where they just became an inconvenience or annoyance for Ash instead of an actual threat taken seriously. Now with all the good things out of the way, let's talk about the not so good aspects of the episode, which is basically everything that happened at the beginning of it. Rayquaza appearing right before the heroes received the finishing blow, to be honest, that is a little bit too plot convenient, and it also still baffles me that such a rare and strong Pokemon just casually resided in a Pokeball, which was in the possession of Roy, aka someone who at this point hasn't even officially become a trainer yet. But before everybody is screaming for all of this to be just a Deus Ex Machina, hear me out. It was plot convenient, yes, that's for sure, but by no means was it a Deus Ex Machina. For example, Ash and his friends praying for literally the god of Pokemon to solve their unsolvable problem to go away without any effort or explanation. Now that is a Deus Ex Machina, that's for sure, which is also one of the main reasons I dislike the second Dawn return in Journeys. But this one right here with Rayquaza isn't really the same in my opinion. Sure, Rayquaza forced the villains to retreat, but Rayquaza itself was actually about to attack our heroes instead of saving them, therefore becoming an even bigger threat to the main characters. He only didn't destroy them thanks to Liko, and Rayquaza then leaving them alone only after seeing Liko kinda indicates that her pendant and the legendary Pokemon have some sort of connection to each other, which opens up more mysteries and possibilities surrounding the pendant itself, and therefore more obstacles for Liko to solve later down the road. But Horizons really has to be careful with this potential, because from a storytelling point of view, this could end up either really good or really bad. But for now, I'm not going to judge the anime on the sole first appearance of Rayquaza alone. Another thing I also didn't really like was everything in regards of the so-called ancient adventurers. That they were generic adventurers with generic goals, but somehow, someway, conveniently were able to fully control shiny Rayquaza. In my opinion, everything in regards of them is just too vague, and with barely any kind of justification or explanation. And let me remind you, those vaguely described people are the so-called role models of the secondary main protagonist Roy. But to sum it all up, despite the seemingly chaotic start, later on, thanks to both the Roy scene and the Amifio scene, the episode improved significantly, and overall I really enjoyed this episode, even though the whole Rayquaza story could give me some headaches later down the road, but let's hope that everything will turn out alright. Anyway guys, I really hope you enjoyed this review. What is your opinion? Tell me, and just like always, see you guys in the comments down below.